her mum said to him, "How's she going?" And he said, "Yeah." And then obviously they tried to speak discreetly next to me, but it was something along the lines of, she pulled up, saw this today, and we tried to see if she was all right, but
What happens when the most important people in a superstar's life have to step in and do the organization's job for them? Because that's exactly what just went down with Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. And I promise you, the implications of this are way bigger than anyone is letting on right now. Her parents were at the arena. They were standing right.
She is not going to be benched if she's not injured, or she's not going to do any damage to herself. Like, she is a true competitor to her core. Seriously, this is Caitlin not playing. This is her wishing she was on the floor. This is her going, "God, get me out there." She said recently, like, being on the bench, yes, she wants to be one of the best teammates she can in terms of being supportive, but God knows she does not.
Right there courtside. And a bystander, just some random person close enough to hear, caught a conversation that ripped the lid off something the Fever front office clearly didn't want out in the open yet. What was said in that brief exchange didn't just raise eyebrows. It
said to him, "How's she going?" And he said, "Yeah." And then obviously they tried to speak discreetly next to me, but it was something along the lines of, she pulled up, saw this today, and we tried to see if she was all right, but we just made a decision.
Confirmed what a lot of people had already been suspecting for months. There is a real, growing disconnect between Caitlin Clark's camp and the franchise that's supposed to be building its entire future around her. Now, I want to be clear from the jump. This isn't about one missed game. This isn't about one bad night or one frustrated tweet. What we're looking at here is the slow, visible
Kelly Cross cough, Amber Cox move right here. Doing a last-minute update. Caitlin Clark is not playing tonight. And I gotta count my blessings that I was able to watch Caitlin Clark. I was able to get signatures, the whole everything with her. I got the Caitlin Clark experience twice this year. I feel bad for the fans that travel so far to go see her play, and they won't be able to see her tonight. And they pull the carpet underneath all those fans. This is wrong, guys.
Cracking of a relationship between a generational talent and the organization that drafted her. And if Indiana doesn't course correct fast, the consequences won't just sting locally. They'll ripple across the entire league. Before we get into exactly what her parents said and why it matters so much, I genuinely want to hear from you. Do you think Caitlin Clark finishes her career in Indiana, or do you think she's already mentally halfway out the door? Drop your honest take in the comments right now, because I'm reading every single one. Now let's rewind a little, because to really understand why this moment hit so hard, you need to understand exactly who Caitlin Clark is at her core. There are players who love the game, and then there's Caitlin Clark, who basically breathes it like oxygen. This is the same person who walked into college basketball and completely rewrote the record books. She left Iowa as the NCAA's all-time leading scorer, male or female, with 3,951 points. Not close, not debatable, the undisputed number one. She didn't just win games at Iowa, she packed arenas. She crashed TV ratings. She turned women's college basketball into appointment viewing for millions of people who had never watched a single game before in their lives. And when the WNBA draft came around in 2024, Indiana snagged the number one pick, and everything changed overnight. Clark didn't just show up and learn the ropes quietly like most rookies. She grabbed Rookie of the Year honors and dragged the Fever into the playoffs for the first time since 2016. Think about that timeline. Indiana hadn't sniffed the postseason in 8 years. She walks through the door and they're suddenly relevant again in one single season. But then 2025 happened, and honestly, it was brutal. A right groin strain, a left quad injury, one setback after another piling up until her body just couldn't keep up with her mind anymore. She appeared in only 13 games the entire season. 13. She missed the whole second half. And in September, she went on social media herself and told the world she wouldn't be coming back that year. For someone wired the way she's wired, sitting on a couch watching your team play without you had to feel like absolute torture. So when 2026 rolled around, everybody was watching. Could she come back at the same level? Could the body hold up this time? And the answer, at least through the first month, has been a resounding yes. She's averaging 20.3 points per game, dishing out 7.8 assists, pulling down 4.6 rebounds. The Fever are sitting at 8-5 with a 3-game winning streak. She just got named Eastern Conference Player of the Week. She tied the franchise record for most 30-point double-doubles and became the first player in WNBA history to record 3 career games with at least 30 points and 10 assists. First, ever. So this is not a player on the decline. This is not someone whose competitive fire has dimmed even slightly. If anything, the injuries made her hungrier. You can see it every time she steps on the floor. She plays like somebody who knows exactly how it feels to have the game ripped away from her, and she's not letting that happen again. Which is exactly why what happened on a random Wednesday night in May sent absolute shockwaves through the entire league. May 20th, 2026. The Fever are scheduled to play the Portland Fire, standard midweek game. Nothing unusual on the surface. Caitlin Clark is not listed on the team's official injury report the day before. As far as the public knows, as far as the media knows, as far as every fan who bought a ticket specifically to see her play knows, she's good to go. Then the pregame walkthrough happens on Wednesday afternoon. And suddenly, out of absolutely nowhere, the Fever scratch her from the lineup. Back soreness. That's the explanation. Back soreness that apparently didn't exist 24 hours earlier when the injury report went out clean. Now let's talk about timing for a second. This announcement dropped roughly 100 minutes before tip-off. 100 minutes. That means fans who drove 2 hours, 3 hours, some who crossed entire state lines and booked hotel rooms just to be there, found out at the arena doors that the only reason they came wasn't playing. No advance warning, no heads up, just a last-second gut punch. And the messaging from the organization, an absolute mess. Coach Stephanie White got in front of the cameras and somehow managed to contradict herself in the span of a few sentences. On one hand, she's telling reporters Clark is healthy and they're not managing anything. On the other hand, she's saying it's not the time to take a chance. So which one is it? Is she healthy or isn't she? Are you managing her workload or aren't you? Because those two statements cannot coexist in the same reality. Beat reporters initially framed it as load management, a strategic rest decision to protect her long-term health. Makes sense on paper, right? Except White then went out of her way to deny that's what it was. So now you've got the head coach actively dismissing the most logical explanation without offering a clear alternative. And into that vacuum of information, speculation just absolutely exploded. The WNBA itself stepped in and officially warned the Fever for violating the league's injury reporting rules. Let that sink in for a second. The league had to formally reprimand one of its own franchises because the way they handled their most valuable players' availability was so messy, so disorganized, that it actually broke protocol. That doesn't just look bad. That's a structural red flag. And caught in the middle of all of this chaos were the fans. Real people who spent real money and real time, standing in that arena with nothing but confusion and frustration. One fan's reaction basically summed up the entire mood perfectly. He talked about counting his blessings just because he'd managed to see Clark play twice that season. Twice. That's the bar now. Not celebrating wins, not debating playoff runs. Just feeling lucky you got to watch her at all. And then he said the part that cut deepest. He said they pulled the carpet out from under the fans, that this was wrong. He wasn't blaming Caitlin. Nobody was blaming Caitlin. Every ounce of that frustration was aimed directly at the organization for blindsiding people who showed up in good faith. And just when the confusion hit its absolute peak, a courtside conversation changed the entire narrative. Here's where it gets really interesting. Caitlin Clark's parents, Amy and Matt, were right there at the arena that night. They weren't hiding up in some private suite away from everyone. They were courtside, accessible, visible, and apparently not fully aware of just how close the nearest set of ears was. A bystander standing nearby overheard them speaking with someone, trying to keep the conversation low, but the words carried. And what came out was something along the lines of, "She pulled up, we saw this today, and we made a decision to sit her out." Now I need you to really focus on that specific phrasing for a second. Read it again in your head. We made a decision. Not the team made a decision. Not the medical staff cleared it. Not Coach White called it. We. Her parents used the word we. That single word choice completely reshapes everything. Because it implies a level of direct family involvement in a professional roster decision that goes way beyond just concerned parents worrying about their daughter's health from the stands. This sounds like active participation. This sounds like people who felt they needed to step in because the normal channels weren't handling it properly. And here's the part that should genuinely bother you if you care about how professional organizations operate. That accidental, overheard, completely unofficial parent conversation at Courtside was the single clearest, most specific piece of information anyone in that entire building received about why Caitlin Clark wasn't playing that night. Not the PR department, not the coaching staff's press conference, not the official team statement. A random bystander catching fragments of a quiet family conversation gave the public more transparency than the entire Indiana Fever communications infrastructure. Whether that reflects pure organizational sloppiness or something deeper and more dysfunctional, it raises questions that the franchise hasn't come anywhere close to answering. Because think about what this really means. The Fever have a fully funded public relations team. They have a medical department. They have official channels designed specifically for this exact purpose. And yet somehow, all of those resources combined were outperformed in basic transparency by an accidental eavesdrop. When a star player's family feels the need to fill the information vacuum that the organization left wide open, that's not just a quirky behind-the-scenes moment. That's a symptom. Parents don't insert themselves into professional roster decisions unless there's a leadership void pulling them in. In healthy franchise relationships, the organization communicates clearly, the player trusts the process, and the family gets to just sit back and watch the game like everybody else. What happened here was the complete inversion of that entire dynamic. But the real reason this conversation sent shockwaves wasn't about one game. It was about what it revealed underneath. The day after the Portland scratch, Caitlin Clark stepped in front of reporters and did something you almost never see from a player in her position. She didn't deflect. She didn't give the standard corporate non-answer. She fired back with specifics. She told the media she actually went back and checked the timestamps because of all the wild narratives spiraling online. She said she told her mom she wasn't playing at 4:47 p.m. The media found out at 5:20 p.m. That's a 40-minute gap. Her own mother, one of the most important people in her entire life, found out she wasn't playing just 40 minutes before the press did. Read that again. Her mom got barely more notice than a random reporter refreshing Twitter. If that doesn't tell you everything about the communication breakdown inside that organization, nothing will. Clark also opened up about the mental side of things in a way that was genuinely raw and honest. She said coming back from that many soft tissue injuries is a real mental challenge. That it's about her confidence in her body, not just whether the MRI looks clean. That's an incredibly vulnerable thing to admit publicly, especially for someone whose entire brand is built on fearless competitiveness. And the fact that she felt the need to explain herself to that degree tells you she knew the narrative was already spinning out of control, and the organization wasn't doing enough to manage it. Meanwhile, the tensions with head coach Stephanie White had been simmering for weeks before any of this even happened. White made public comments about wanting Clark to play more off the ball. Fans immediately read that as trying to diminish her role. Sideline interactions between the two were getting dissected frame by frame on social media. One heated in-game exchange between Clark and White went completely viral, with people analyzing every gesture and facial expression like it was a crime scene investigation. Was some of that overblown? Probably. Coaches and players argue during games all the time. That's competition. But the problem is, when you already have a trust deficit with your fan base, every single one of those moments gets interpreted through the worst possible lens. And the Fever had done absolutely nothing to build up enough goodwill to get the benefit of the doubt. It got loud enough that Rachel DeMita publicly said Clark should leave Indiana. She went as far as saying that if this were an NBA franchise operating the same way, people would already be fired. Now, you can agree or disagree with that take, but the fact that it was being said at all and getting massive traction tells you exactly where the public sentiment had already landed. Here's the pattern that should concern Indiana more than anything else. Across the history of professional sports, when the communication gaps between a franchise and its star get this wide, the star's inner circle starts doing the talking. And once the inner circle goes public, you're already in the danger zone. That's not the beginning of a problem. That's the middle of one. And if you think the noise was loud then, wait until you hear what the rumor mill cooked up next. It didn't take long for the speculation machine to go into absolute overdrive. Just weeks into the 2026 season, with all of this dysfunction swirling in the background, the trade rumors hit. And they hit hard. Retired NBA champion Mitchell Thompson posted on social media claiming the Fever no longer want Clark on their team. That's a pretty wild thing to throw out there with zero sourcing, but it didn't matter. It spread everywhere instantly. Then Jason Whitlock jumped in, claiming the Fever were actively planning to ship Caitlin Clark to the Los Angeles Sparks. Within hours, it was the #1 trending sports topic online. Now here's where we need to pump the brakes and be really honest about what's actually verified and what's just noise. Because as of right now, not a single credible WNBA reporter has confirmed any trade discussions involving Caitlin Clark. Not one. No insider with actual front office sources has corroborated any of it. The people pushing these claims the hardest are commentators and retired athletes, not people with direct access to the decision makers. Clark herself addressed it head-on and honestly seemed more annoyed than anything. She told reporters she doesn't really know why everyone is still on this and that the sky is not falling. Short, direct, no drama, just a clear signal that from her perspective, this is fabricated chaos. But here's the thing. Even if the trade rumors are completely baseless right now, the underlying contract situation is very real and it creates a ticking clock that Indiana cannot ignore. Clark is currently on a 4-year rookie scale deal that runs through the 2027 season. Her salary this year jumped to $528,846. Sounds like decent money, until you realize she pulled in over $16 million from endorsement deals last year alone. She's making roughly 30 times more off the court than on it. The WNBA's pay structure means Indiana can't compete financially with what the open market offers her in terms of attention, branding, and legacy positioning. After 2027, Clark becomes a restricted free agent. Indiana will have the right to match any offer she receives. But here's the catch that most people miss. Restricted free agency gives the team a technical advantage, but it doesn't give them an emotional one. If Clark decides she wants out, matching an offer sheet just forces an unhappy superstar to stay. And we've seen how that movie ends in every major sport. It's never pretty. There was even a small moment recently that fans absolutely latched onto. During a casual on-camera exchange, Clark reportedly reminded teammate Aaliyah Boston that she's not signed to a long-term deal. She said it lightly, almost like a joke. But the internet doesn't do jokes when you're Caitlin Clark. That comment got screen-recorded, clipped, shared, and analyzed by thousands of people convinced it was a subtle signal about her future intentions. Was it just playful banter? Probably. But in an environment where trust is already fractured and communication is already failing, even innocent comments become ammunition for the speculation machine. And Indiana has nobody to blame for that environment but themselves. The real takeaway isn't whether she's getting traded tomorrow. It's that Indiana's window to prove they deserve her long-term loyalty is actively shrinking with every mishandled situation, every botched press conference, and every courtside conversation that shouldn't have been necessary in the first place. But here's the part that most people haven't even considered yet. Let's zoom all the way out for a second because this story isn't just about Indiana. It's about the entire future of women's professional basketball. Caitlin Clark didn't just boost the Fever's local attendance numbers. She fundamentally rewired the economics of the WNBA. Before she arrived, the league was respected but niche. Dedicated fans loved it, but mainstream America largely treated it as an afterthought. Clark changed that almost overnight. Sold out arenas in cities she'd never even visited. TV ratings that shattered every previous record the league had ever set. An entirely new demographic of fans who had never watched a single WNBA game suddenly tuning in every week specifically because of her. That impact directly translated into money. The league's new collective bargaining agreement is worth a reported $1 billion over 7 years. Rookie salaries increased sixfold. Players across the entire league, not just Clark, are earning more because of the wave she created. You can draw a straight financial line from Clark's arrival to better contracts, better facilities, and better visibility for every single player in the W off the court. She's building an empire. Reports indicate she's sitting on an 8-year Nike deal worth $28 million, which would make it the largest sponsorship contract ever given to a women's basketball player. She was spotted wearing friendship bracelets with Caitlin One, and the date October 1st, 2026, sparking massive speculation about the launch of her first signature shoe. She just announced her first children's book, a picture book for kids ages 4 through 8. She was named Time's 2024 Athlete of the Year. This isn't just a basketball player anymore. This is a full-blown global brand operating at a level the WNBA has never seen before. And that's exactly why the way Indiana handles this relationship matters so much beyond just wins and losses. Because the new fans Clark brought to the league are not the same as the old guard. They don't have 20 years of built-in loyalty cushioning the blow when things go sideways. They showed up because of her. They stay because of her. And if their experience revolves around last-minute scratches with zero communication, confusing press conferences that contradict themselves, and a general sense that the organization doesn't respect their time or money, they're not going to just tough it out and come back stronger next year. No, they're going to leave, quietly, permanently, and they're going to tell everyone they know exactly why. Think about the fan who drove 4 hours to see Clark play against Portland. He walks into the arena excited. He's got his tickets, probably grabbed some merch, maybe booked a hotel for the night. And then 100 minutes before tip-off, he finds out she's not playing. What does that person do? He doesn't become a battle-tested loyalist. He becomes a cautionary tale. He tells his coworkers. He posts about it online. He warns his friends not to bother making the trip. One bad experience, multiplied by thousands of fans across dozens of games, and suddenly the growth story that everyone has been celebrating starts showing cracks. The WNBA is in a historic growth window right now. That's undeniable. But historic growth windows are also historically fragile. New audiences don't absorb constant operational disappointment the way entrenched fan bases do. They haven't built up the emotional scar tissue. They don't have childhood memories of watching this team with their parents to fall back on when things get frustrating. All they have is the current experience. And right now, for a significant chunk of the Fever's new fan base, the current experience involves anxiety about whether the star they came to see will even be on the court. Indiana isn't just risking a localized PR headache. They're actively threatening the structural foundation of the league's entire mainstream breakthrough. And the scariest part is, they might not even fully realize it yet. So with all of this swirling, where do things actually stand right now? Alright, so here's where I have to be completely honest with you, even if it goes against the prevailing narrative online. Because the reality of this situation is more complicated than either side wants to admit. Multiple WNBA talent evaluators, given the chance to speak freely on background, have said the same thing. They don't view the Fever as a team in crisis. At all. The coaching staff, led by Stephanie White with assistant Brian January, has consistently improved as the season has progressed. The defensive schemes are tightening up. The rotations are getting sharper. The results are actually showing up in the win column. And Clark herself, she just had one of the best weeks any player has ever had in this league. She averaged 25.3 points per game over the stretch. She hit a game-winning three-pointer that had the arena absolutely losing its mind. She became the first player in WNBA history to record 3 career games with at least 30 points and 10 assists. The Fever are 8-5 and riding momentum. By almost every measurable on court standard, things are working. So here's the honest, uncomfortable truth that nobody online really wants to hear right now. Indiana doesn't have a basketball problem. The product on the floor is genuinely good. Clark is playing at an elite level. The team is winning. The foundation she's building in Indiana is real and tangible and showing up in every single stat sheet. What Indiana has is a trust problem. And in the modern era of professional sports, where player empowerment is at an all-time high and social media turns every misstep into a wildfire, a trust problem is arguably more dangerous than a basketball problem. Because you can fix a bad roster. You can adjust a failing scheme. You can fire a coach or trade a role player. But you cannot buy back trust once it's broken. You can't issue a press release that undoes months of sloppy communication. You can't hold a press conference that magically erases the frustration a fan felt when they showed up and got blindsided. Clark's parents shouldn't have to be the ones providing clarity at courtside. Her mom shouldn't be finding out 40 minutes before the media. Fans shouldn't be counting their blessings just for getting to see her play. And the league shouldn't have to formally warn a franchise for mishandling the availability of its biggest star. Every single one of those things is a failure, not a basketball failure, an organizational one. The good news, if you want to call it that, is that the window isn't closed yet. Clark is under contract through 2027. She's publicly said the sky isn't falling. The team is winning. The on-court chemistry is undeniable. There is still time to get this right. But here's what Indiana needs to understand, and I mean really deeply internalize. The margin for error is gone. Every botched injury report, every contradictory press conference, every moment where Clark's camp has to fill the void that the front office left empty, it all accumulates. It builds pressure. And at some point, that pressure finds a release. Either Indiana fixes the way it communicates, the way it operates around its most valuable asset, and earns back the trust it's been slowly hemorrhaging, or the story writes itself. Clark fulfills her rookie deal, hits restricted free agency, and the entire league lines up to offer her what Indiana couldn't, a franchise that matches her standard. The critics and the doubters won't even need to celebrate. Indiana will just hand them the narrative on a silver platter all by themselves. And I'll leave you with this one thought. Caitlin Clark doesn't need Indiana. She proved that long before she ever wore a Fever jersey. The real question, the one that should keep every single person in that front office wide awake at night, is whether Indiana can survive without her. So what do you think? Can the Fever fix this before it's too late, or has the damage already been done? Tell me your honest opinion in the comments right now. And if you want this kind of deep, no fluff breakdown every single time a massive story like this drops, hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. I'll catch you in the next one.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.